Hello, today's video is me giving you a tour of my bookshelf, part 1, because I am a massive reader, I'm a massive bookworm, I love books, I love reading, and I do own a few books because I like to collect books, and I hope to have an even bigger collection someday, but these are just the books I have right now that I'm going to show you all of them, all the ones that I have, the ones that I have and have read, the ones I have and haven't read. And before I get into showing you the books I do have, I first have some statistics for you. So if my counting and calculations are correct, I currently own 71 books. So that's 71 physical books, either hardback or paperback. Then out of that 71, I have read 60, so that means there are 11 that are unread, and that means, if my calculations are correct, that is 15.5% of my books are unread, which I think is pretty good stats in general, but for me, it really pains me because I really used to be one of those people who would not buy a new book until all their books were read. But just recently, I've just been on such a book buying high and just buying books, even though I already have like 10 at home to read essentially, which I don't really like doing it that way. So I need to commit to reading all these 11 books, and then I can buy new ones, and I can't buy new ones until I've read the 11, although I do think that will be quite challenging, as you'll see with some of the books that I have, because some of them are very big books, so it might take me a while. Yeah, I think that those odds are okay, to be honest. Also, just wanted to mention that I do also read on my Kobo, which is like the budget WH Smith version of a Kindle, which my mum actually got from her mum, who then gave it to me. And I just use that because it works, so I'm like, I might as well. It works, I can buy any book on it, and yeah. I did used to read a lot on my Kobo, especially when I was a bit younger. When I was at university, I would buy the books on the Kobo, read them on there, so I never had the physical books. But as time's gone on, I've since realised how much I love having the physical book, how much I love having the physical representation of how much I've read, I suppose. And I also just love books. I love being surrounded by books, I love looking at books, I love smelling books. They just make me really happy. So I haven't read anything on the Kobo for a while because I've wanted to get the physical book. However, the books that I do read on the Kobo would be books that I'm not sure I'm gonna like, because I don't know if I really want to keep loads of hard copies of books that I didn't actually like. I feel like if I didn't like it, I wouldn't want it in my collection. So ones that I'm not sure, I will get on the Kobo, or ones that the covers are just, I just hate them. I just hate the covers, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I don't want that cover in my collection. I'll probably get it on the Kobo as well, but it has been a while since I got any on the Kobo. So yeah, I've just been reading mainly physical books recently. But yeah, let's get into my books, my 71 books. As I said, this is part 1, so I'll try and do like about half of them, and then in part 2 we'll do the second half. I just felt like this should be 2 parts because I feel like I am going to chat a bit about every book, and I didn't want it to be super long or feel like I had to rush because I had to get through 71. So I feel like half of it is a bit more manageable. So let's just get right into it. There are no order to these books. I've literally just pulled them off my shelf. The way that I organise them on the shelf, which I feel like some people will hate, is by colour. So I do it in a rainbow, and I love that. I love that so much. It gives me so much happiness, so much joy. I love doing it by colour, and yeah, it works for me. I never struggle to find a book, but then again, I only have 71, so they are all like flat out and I can see them all. Yeah, I never struggled to find a book. But who knows, maybe if my collection got bigger, I would be like, nah, I need to find a different way. But I don't know, I really like the by colour way. I just love the visual of it. So that is what it will be done by, is by colour, essentially. So let's go. I'm so excited because I just love books so much. So first up, great one to start with, we have It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, which is actually really topical right now, and this is in the pink section, so pink spine in the pink section of my bookcase. And It Ends With Us, my sister gave me this because my sister very much reads Colleen Hoover type books. She reads romance, like modern day romances, a lot of stuff like that, which I really do not tend to read, which I think you will see quite a lot from my collection. I don't really read many books like this, but my sister gave it to me and I was like, you know what, because she'd finished with it. I was like, you know what, I got this book for free, I might as well read it. I'd heard mixed reviews essentially. I'd heard things about Colleen Hoover and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna read it. And I was pleasantly surprised. I honestly think this is probably one of Colleen Hoover's, it probably is her best book, and it's probably the only book apart from It Starts With Us, which is also my collection, that I will read of hers. I think this is enough for me. I think the messaging and the way that this is written is actually very good and very effective, and I think it is a very important story, and I actually really did enjoy this book. I found my jaw like dropping on the floor. I was attached to the characters. I do think the writing for me is not my style. I find it a bit cringy, like the names, for example, of the characters, and like the whole thing with like Ellen and like Finding Nemo, like a lot of it was a bit cringy for me, but I did enjoy the book and I have read it. So yeah, this is one of my read books. This is one of the 60 read books that I have. Yeah, but I actually would, if you're going to read any Colleen Hoover, make it this one and probably only this one. But yeah, that's my first book, is It Ends With Us. Now we're moving on to a haven't read, and this is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I actually got this book recently. My boyfriend bought it for me as a present. We got it from TK Maxx, because in TK Maxx they have like this sale section where they have like books for sale, and we got so lucky on this trip, and this is one of the ones I got. He got me a few, which you will see in either part 1 or part 2, the other ones that we got along with this one. And yeah, I love Jane Austen so much. I've actually only read Pride and Prejudice and Emma. I think that's it that I've read of Jane Austen, but I love them very much. I love classical books, I love classical writing, I love the Jane Austen movies and just everything about it. So I was like, I want to read all the Jane Austens. Let's get Sense and Sensibility, because I've never read it. I have seen the movie, which I didn't love, but you know, I think I'm gonna love the book. And also just look at this cover, like how stunning is this? So yes, this is one of my unread books, but I am very excited to read it. Next up, another unread book. This is Magnolia Parks, and this book was never on my radar until this TikToker that I watch mentioned that she was reading it, and she had a cover. It was a different cover to this, which I was like, that is stunning. I want that book kind of just for the cover, even if I don't even like it. And then so I was searching online for that cover, and then I found this one, and tell me why I love this one even more. I don't know what it is. I usually don't like covers with real people on them, but this one, I love it. I love it so much. And the way that this was described to me was Gossip Girl, but is it set in London? It's set in London, and she described it, this TikToker described it as Gossip Girl but set in London. And I know that there's a series of these, and every cover is stunning to me, so I'm going to read it, and I am excited, even though I think I do tend to lean more towards classics, and I really enjoy like poetic writing and stuff like that. I do think I will enjoy this. I just have a feeling, because I feel like sometimes when you're reading, if you've kind of read like, I don't know, like 3 Jane Austen books in a row, you kind of feel like you need a break at this point, and you're like, I need to read something that's just an easy read. And I do read easy reads, or at least easy reads for me, and I do enjoy them, and I think this will be one of them. So yeah, I'm really excited to read it, but I have not read it yet. And yeah, I'm in love with the cover. And if it is like Gossip Girl, that will be really nice, because I've seen the show. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. I've watched it many times, and I've also read every single Gossip Girl book. I can't remember how many there were. I feel like there were a lot though. I've read every single book. I used to have the hard copies of every single Gossip Girl book, but I actually gave them away because I did not enjoy the books that much compared to the show. The books, I don't know what they were doing with the books. Yeah, so I've actually read every single Gossip Girl book. So if this is like Gossip Girl, I think I will enjoy it. So yeah, very excited for Magnolia Parks. Now, this massive book is Little Women, and it says Little Women and Other Novels from Louisa May Alcott. I have read Little Women. I love Little Women so much. It is one of my favourite novels, one of my top 10. And this isn't the one I read. I actually read it on my Kobo, but I saw this online and was like, I have to have this. Like, it's so gorgeous, because it is. And yeah, it has different books in it. It also has Little Men, which is another one written by Louisa May Alcott, and I have seen a movie version of Little Men, but I've never read it. And then it also has Jo's Boys, so I'm very excited to reread Little Women in this book and also read the other 2. I've just realised I counted this as one book, even though there's technically 3 books in this, So maybe that brings my book total up of unread. I don't know. I think I'll still count it as one book. It's just bloody massive. And again, going back to what I said earlier about how the 11 books that I haven't read is going to be quite hard to fulfill. But also thinking about it, I didn't count this as one of the books I haven't read, when I kind of should have, because I haven't read Little Men and Jo's Boys. So maybe there's actually 12 books and one of them is this big. But yeah, absolutely gorgeous. Just, yeah, absolutely stunning. And yeah, very, very excited to read Little Men and Jo's Boys, and also reread Little Women, because as I said, it's one of my favourites of all time. Next we have, and this is where it's going to be a bit confusing because it's going by colour. So again, this is pink. We'll always have summer. So this is, I think it's the 3rd instalment of the Summer I Turned Pretty book series, and I have read this. I've read all the books. I have them all. They will all be in either part 1 or part 2. Yeah, this is the 3rd book. I did really enjoy the books of the Summer I Turned Pretty. I love the show. I think it's so good. Like, just love it so much. And I watched season 1 of the show and was like, right, I need to read the books then, because I love this show so much. And yeah, I really, really like the books. I think I prefer the show more, just because, I don't know, the books, I don't know, I just do. I think I just do prefer the show more. I think in the show you get a bit more Conrad, and that's what I like. And also Conrad, I think, is just nicer in the show over Conrad in the books. But I do really love the books. Again, this is one that I would call an easy read, and it's just like boy drama, and like, yeah, just boy drama between Belly, Jeremiah and Conrad, and I love it. I love the drama. So yeah, I did really, really enjoy this book, and as I said, the whole series. And yeah, as I said, I've got the whole other series as well to come at some point. Next up, we have a poetry book, and this is To the Man I Loved Too Much and the Ones Who Never Loved Me Enough, and it says it's by Gabrielle, I think that's Gabrielle G. I requested my boyfriend to buy me this for Christmas, and when I requested it, I did not know it was a poetry book, but it is. I've read it. I did enjoy it, but I don't know. I don't think it was exactly the type of poetry that speaks to me personally, but you know, it was nice. I think this is the only poetry book I have in my collection, I believe, so I probably need to get some more. But yeah, it was definitely interesting, but I don't think it is one that I would really enthusiastically recommend. Cover's really nice, the title's pretty cool, but yeah, I wouldn't like, I'm not raving about this one. And as you can see, we've moved on to red. Next we have Women Don't Owe You Pretty, and I feel like this is just a classic like feminist book that I bought in like, I think it was like 2020, because my friend had read it and was like, you should read this, and I wanted to read like some more feminist stuff. And yeah, this is a feminist book. It's by Florence Given. I actually follow Florence Given on TikTok right now, and just tell me why. She seems like the loveliest person ever, like just the sweetest, most positive person ever. And this book is extremely pretty, obviously, like look at it, it's gorgeous. But I do think when I was reading this book, everything that it was telling me was kind of already knowledge to me. So I feel like it may be better for someone who kind of wants, it's a bit like Feminism 101, like it's not in depth, and yeah, I don't know, it's still good, but it might be more like feminism for a younger person, for the younger generation, for yeah, someone a bit younger, because I read this at 20, and yeah, just everything that I read now, I was like, I'm already like doing everything in here and thinking everything in here basically. But yeah, absolutely gorgeous book though. Next up we have another version of Little Women. I don't have many books that I have more than one version of, because I don't really see the point, but I will do it if I love the book. And I thought both versions were pretty. I do think the other one is obviously like stunning, but this is the one that they make in the movie. So if you've seen the 2019 Greta Gerwig Little Women, this is literally a replica of like the one that Jo makes in that. And also with this one, they have like pictures of like the movie, so it is like, it's a special one, you know. And I've not read this because I've read Little Women on my Kobo, but I have read Little Women, so I count this as read. Although one day I will read Little Women in this format, but I also have the other one to read as well, so who knows when I'll do that. But yeah, as I said, love Little Women so much, and it's just a second version of it. Next up, we have Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Now, this book, I read this 2016, I think, is when I read this series. 2016, 2017, something like that. Me and my brothers got the series for Christmas, but it was lols because I'm the only one who's ever read any of them. They kind of convinced themselves, oh yeah, we'll read that, as people who don't really read. One of my brothers does read a bit, but the other one like barely reads. He read a little bit like when we were younger and when we'd like visit the library, but not much. The other one did read a little bit, but yeah, neither of them have read this series, which is quite funny. But yeah, so this is a series of books. I do have the other two as well. It's a hardback version of it, which is really pretty, I think. And there's also a movie of this first book, which is called the same thing, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, starring Asa Butterfield. It's a Tim Burton movie. And yeah, I really like this series. It's definitely for kids, I think, but I really enjoyed it when I read it. I really cared for the characters. I really liked the story. I just found the whole thing really interesting. And if you haven't seen the movie or don't know the books, it's essentially about these kids who have these like powers. To be honest, I've read this book so long ago that I'm like, I don't even remember much, to be honest. But it's about kids who have powers and they live in this house, Miss Peregrine's house, and then essentially throughout the trilogy they're going on this journey to, I think, like save their kind, because there essentially are these monsters who can sense the kids that have powers, who want to kill the kids that have powers, essentially. I think that was the plot. It sounds very X-Men. It is kind of X-Men, although it's not. It's very like old-fashioned, like, yeah, it's just very interesting, and I did really like this book. And an interesting thing with the set of books that I got, they came with little pictures, and it is said that the guy who wrote it, who did write this? I don't even think it says. It says Riggs up here. I don't know if that means they wrote it. I will put it on the screen who wrote this because I'm not sure. But he has said that he got the inspiration from, he found some pictures in a charity shop and essentially took these pictures and made a story based on these pictures. And there were some pictures of like illusions. There was one of like the floating girl. There was one of like the dog boy who had like a dog face. And these were illusions, but they were illusions created from the camera and like created from double exposures and created through light tricks and all this stuff. And that's what inspired the books, apparently, which is very cool. And yeah, I really like the books. I do really like them. Definitely a bit younger, but still very good and very enjoyable. Next, we have Different Seasons by Stephen King. I feel like I've spoken about this book a few times on my channel. Look how fat it is. It's fat. Excuse the like sun damage. I've had this book for a while. Yeah, this is Different Seasons. This is one of the books that I have read, and it's the only Stephen King I've read actually, but it's bloody massive one for me to have read. And Different Seasons is essentially a collection of novellas, and the novellas in this are Shawshank Redemption, The Body, which inspired Stand By Me, Apt Pupil, and The Breathing Method, I believe is what they're all called. And I really enjoyed this book. I really love Stephen King. I really like his writing. I think his writing is extremely accessible, which I think is really nice, because I do love classics, but obviously sometimes the writing is not very accessible, and I don't think it means that not everyone can read it and can enjoy reading it, whereas I think Stephen King's writing is so accessible that like anyone could read it, and I really appreciate that about it. I just really like Stephen King and his twisted mind, and some of the stories in here are very twisted, namely Apt Pupil, that's very twisted. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. First and only Stephen King I've read, and I hope to read more because I did really enjoy it, but I've not got round to reading more yet. And as you can see, we're now on to orange section of the bookcase. Now, still on the orange section, we have The Body Keeps Score. So this is a non-fiction book that is all about trauma and about how the body essentially keeps score of trauma. So if you experience trauma, the body will hold on to that. It will come up in physical ways. It will manifest it in physical ways. It will manifest it in different ways. And it's also about how people who suffered trauma have been treated, about the exploration of how you treat them, if you treat them with drugs or therapy or whatever else you treat them with. Yeah, very interesting. It's also written by a psychologist, so Bessel van der Kolk, probably butchered that, and I have not finished this book. I'm reading it, as you can see. I've got my little bookmark. I'm not too far in, but it is very good. It's very interesting, it's very intriguing, and yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting read. I definitely read more fiction than non-fiction, but I want to bring more non-fiction in because I do really enjoy it. And yeah, I really like this book. I find it fascinating because I just love learning about humans and our bodies, because I don't know, it's interesting to learn about ourselves and our physiological behaviors and all of that. So yes, this book so far has been pretty good, but as I said, I have not finished it yet. It is one of the 11. Next we have The Elite, written by Kiera. Now this is part of a series. This is part of the Selection series, which I have read all the series. I think there's 3 in the original series, and then there's 2 which are like sequels, and yeah, I've read all of them. I have the whole series. I also have a video all about the Selection series on my channel if you are interested in that. But this series is essentially like the Hunger Games mixed with The Bachelor. Essentially they're living in a dystopian America where they have a monarchy, and America is also called like Ilia. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Ilia. I would say Ilia, but I could be wrong. America's called Ilia, and they have a monarchy, and essentially they have this prince, and the prince needs a queen, so they essentially do a bachelor type competition for the next queen, for the next princess. And we follow our main character America, who enters the competition, and it just chronicles the competition and how some of the girls are really cutthroat, what's going on, like romance, blah 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 blah. And yes, I really did like this series. I think again it was more of an easy read, but I did enjoy it. I don't think it's the best writing in the world, but nevertheless I really enjoyed it. And this is, I think this is number 2 in the series. Yep, it says book 2 of the Selection series, and I have all of them. So yes, this is book 2, which is The Elite. Next up we have Dune, and I have read this one, and just look at the cover. How stunning is that? Stunning. I think I said this was my favorite book of 2023, and I still agree. So I read it in 2023. I read it because I watched the first movie, and then I read it before the second one came out, and I really enjoyed it. I actually really love sci-fi, and apparently sci-fi books as well. I just really like this. I think it was very well written. I think the world building is very impressive. I just really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I do know that there's a whole series of these books. I don't know if I will read them, and if I do read them, it'll probably be quite in the future, because although I love this, I feel like reading this book was like enough. Like I've had enough of the world, like in literature form, because like this isn't a small book. Like it is 577 pages, so it's not like it's small. I spent 577 pages in this universe, and I do feel satisfied, like I've had enough. And also I've heard about like how the series progresses and ends, and I'm not sure if I really want to read that, to be honest. But yes, I did really like it, and it is by Frank Herbert, as I'm sure many people know. But yeah, I actually really enjoy books like this, which was a bit surprised to me. Next up we have the book Bad Relations by Cressida Connolly. My friend bought me this book. I'd never heard of it. She bought it for me, and I was like, right, let's give it a read. And it was interesting. I didn't like this book too much. It didn't really connect with me that much. Yeah, let me just read the blurb, because me trying to explain it, I can't even remember it. On the battlefields of the Crimea, William Gale cradles the stillborn body of his brother. William's experience of war will bring about a change in him that will reverberate for his family over the next 2 centuries. In the 1970s, William's descendants invite Stephen, a distant relation, to stay in the house in the English countryside. Their golden summer entanglements will end in a shocking fall from grace. Half a century later, a confrontation between the surviving members of the family will culminate in a terrible reckoning. That's the plot, that's the blurb. And yeah, I just didn't connect with it too much, sadly. It was okay, but I think, I don't know, at some points I found it a bit boring, unfortunately. And yeah, it wasn't my fave, unfortunately. But next up, we do have one of my faves. This is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I read this book years ago and have always had my copy, and I love it so much. I yeah, I just love this book. I think it is so good. I love classic books. What can I say? I love it so much. Also love the movie of Gregory Peck. That is also good. Yeah, 10 out of 10 for this book. Next, I have A Little Life. Now, I've been meaning to read this book for so long. It is still unread. I have started it, but I'm not very far in. But yeah, I've been meaning to read this book for so long. Like, everyone talks about this book, how it's so sad. I love to cry, I love to be sad, I love sad books, so I really wanted to read it. One of my best friends read it when we were like 16, so it's been on my radar since then, and I just never got around to reading it. But I really want to, because I just really want to. I want to know what the hype's about. I want to know what everyone's talking about. I also love the cover. I think it's absolutely beautiful. Also, we are on to like grey, white, beigey spines now. Yeah, I'm really excited to read it, and I think I'm actually going to make a video about me reading it and about my reaction basically. And yeah, I have started it. I'm not very far at all. What I've read so far I'm loving, but I just like stopped because I had like 10 other books to read, and I think I just got a bit overwhelmed of like how many books I had to read, and like the fact that this one's so big. I was like, should I really do this one first when I have so many others to read basically? But yeah, I'm very excited to read this one. I feel like I'm gonna love it. I fear I might love it, but we will see. Next up we have Lolita, also one that I started and have not finished. And the reason I stopped reading this one is because I think I just needed a break, because obviously the subject matter of this is quite heavy. So yeah, I wanted a little break. I'm sure most people know the plot of Lolita, but essentially it is a man who falls in love with, I think, a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, and it's from his perspective. So yeah, it's quite a hard and heavy read, and I have seen one of the movies. There's a few movies and I've watched one, so like I know what happens. But yeah, I do want to read the book because I think it is a classic and it is important to read. But yeah, I took some breaks, so I'll read it again at some point. But yeah, this is currently on my unread list. Next, one of my favourite books of all time, we have The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I'm sure everyone knows The Great Gatsby. This book is just amazing. It is so beautifully written, so beautifully written. I just love it. I love the plot, I love the story, and Daisy Buchanan is one of my all-time favourite characters, and I will die on that hill. I love her. Yeah, just love The Great Gatsby so much. The Leonardo DiCaprio movie is one of my favourite movies of all time. I just love everything about this book. Next up we have a play, and it is one of the only plays I have. I think I have 2 plays. And this play is called No Quarter by Polly Stenham. Now, I studied a Polly Stenham play for my A-level, and that was called That Face, which I grew to hate because I studied it so much that, yeah, I grew to hate it. But I was intrigued to read some of her other work, and I read No Quarter, and I love it so much. This is just, I love it. I would say it's probably one of my favourite plays, and I'll read you the blurb because I fear I will butcher the plot if I don't. So the blurb is, you're brought up on mythology, hollow mythology, that's why you're all stuck, all angry, a prince in the wrong story, a prince with a black eye. Fleeing a world he has rejected, Robin finds solace in his music and the sanctuary of his remote family home. But as his kingdom begins to crumble around him, how far will he go to save it, and at what cost? So yeah, it's all about a boy and his family home essentially trying to save it, and he like invites everyone he loves around to, I guess he'd like to have a party, like they like have a party. Love this book, love this play very much. Definitely one of my favorites. Next I will do these 2 books together because they are like, they go hand in hand, but it is for women only and it is for men only, and these are 2 non-fiction books that are essentially written to give advice to each gender about the other gender. So for example, for women only would be read by women, and for men only would be read by the man. And it is a married couple who wrote these books, and it's just about how to be a better partner essentially, and about the differences between men and women, and about, yeah, what your wife means when she says that, what your husband means when he's acting like that, all this stuff. But I have read both of these. The fact that it's called For Men Only, I was like, well, I'm gonna read it. And me and my boyfriend have both read both of these because we thought it would be good to read the one about our own gender as well, because obviously these books are a bit of a generalization and some of the things might not be accurate to us, and some of them weren't accurate to us. So we read our gender first to then be like, by the way, when you read the chapter on whatever, I actually don't feel like that. Probably a lot of women do, but I don't, and that was just really helpful for us. But yeah, I did really like these books. They were quite informative and I think quite helpful, and they're just like cute little books as well. Next up we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and this is one that I have read. I said that I don't really read romance, but I have read 2 Emily Henry books, and I think I will read her, is it called Beach Read? Because my friend raved about that and said it was like amazing, so I was like, you know what, okay, maybe I will read Beach Read. Again, it's one that I would read as like a little break between like classic books. Yeah, I really like this one. I really like Book Lovers. I found it fun, I love the romance, I found it intriguing, just an all-around good time, and I would recommend it. I think Emily Henry is probably like, I say this as someone who doesn't really read romance. Also, sorry about my dogs barking, there's nothing I can do. I live with them, there's nothing I can do. I can't stop them from barking, unfortunately. Bearing in mind I don't read much romance, but I feel like Emily Henry is at the top tier of romance books. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like she is, because her writing is actually very impressive. And yeah, I really, really like this one. And then another Emily Henry, we have Happy Place. I like this one more than Book Lovers. I just loved Happy Place. I think I maybe liked it more because, I don't know, I think there were more elements that were relatable to me. Just, yeah, just a really good book. Another romance one by the same author. Really good. This one made me like sob, like laugh out loud, like just all the emotions in this one. I realized I didn't tell you what they were about, so I'll read the blurbs for each for you now. So Book Lovers, here's the blurb. Nora is a cutthroat literary agent at the top of her game. Her whole life is books. Charlie is an editor with a gift for creating bestsellers, and he's Nora's work nemesis. Nora has been through enough breakups to know she's the one men date before finding their happily ever after. To prevent another dating dud, Nora's sister persuades her to swap her city desk for a month's holiday in Sunshine Falls. It's a small town straight out of a romance novel, but instead of meeting sexy lumberjacks, handsome doctors, or cute bartenders, Nora keeps bumping into Charlie. So there's a plot of that one. And then Happy Place. Go to a happy place, I think desperately, only to realise I'm literally in my happy place, and he is here. The very last person I expected to see, the very last person I want to see. Win Connor, my fiance. So that's a bit more open for you, but yeah, I'd recommend both these books. But as I said, Happy Place is I definitely enjoyed it a bit more. Now those were the books that I kind of like pulled off my shelf, but the other one, I've got some more to show you, but these are just ones that were like other places in my room. But first up, and I'm going to try and hold these all up, we have the entire Mate State series. I'll show you one of them just to illustrate. So the Mate State series is by Cathy Hopkins, and it is essentially a teen series about teen girls living their life, going through secondary school and all this stuff. And these books are for teens and kids. Like, I read this when I was a kid and a teen, but I have them all, and I'm keeping them all in case I have a daughter that would like to read them, because that would be really, really cool. So I do have all of these, so I just wanted to point that out. But I do have all of these. There's 12 of them, and I have read every single one, and I do really like them. I remember really liking it. It was essentially like, I imagine it's Magnolia Parks for teens and tweens. So yeah, I'm keeping them because of that. I also have some other childhood books like under my bed, but I'm not going to put these in these videos because, I don't know, they're literally just for memories, for if my kids want to read, I can pull out these, so I won't show them. But yeah, I do have a few from my childhood, because there are some books that I read as a kid that was so beloved to me, but that was obviously for kids, so I'm not like displaying them on my shelves because I want space for the books I'm reading now. And then finally, the final book I'm going to show, which is one I actually bought this weekend, is White Nights by, and I don't think I can say his name actually, so I'll just let you look at that, by a Russian writer. And I bought this book because I saw it recommended by Jack Edwards, who is a book YouTuber, if you don't know him, and he really liked it and recommended it. And it's a short little book, and I was like, you know what, I want to read that, because I've never read anything Russian, I don't think, except from Lolita, but I obviously haven't finished that. So this has not been read. I've started it, not very far in, although it's not very long. It's 100 and something pages. Yeah, I just thought, you know what, I'll give that a go, because it's a Penguin classic. I love a classic, as I've said. I'd love to dip my toe in Russian literature, and it's pretty short, so I was like, let's start this. And Jack Edwards recommended it, and I was like, you know what, let's give it a little go. So I'll read it and I'll let you know what I thought. It was also only £4 from Waterstones, which I was like, amazing. A whole book, obviously a short book, but a whole book for £4, how amazing. And that is part 1 of my bookshelf tour. I'm sure by now you can see why I had to do 2 parts, because I just chatted a lot about all the books. But honestly, doing this video has just made me want to read all the books that I've yet to read, because every one that I was like, haven't read that yet, I just thought, damn, I really need to get on that. So yeah, hopefully the rest of this year will entail a lot of reading from me. But yes, that was part 1. Come back for part 2 at some point, possibly next week, we will see. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully you got some recommendations, or you just found it interesting to see my book taste, what I have on my shelves. And yeah, there's still the whole other section to go through, which we'll go through next video. But yeah, that is it from me. Bye.